We are an energy addition, not an energy transition. That and what does it mean to investors on the Energy Newsbeat Daily Stand-Up? We are in an energy addition, not a transition. Math is not mathing up to investors or consumers. Billions of dollars wasted. This is an amazing story when you sit back and take a look. The energy global landscape, the narrative of swift transition away from fossil fuels to renewables has dominated the headlines. However, a closer examination of demand trends, investment patterns, and infrastructure realities reveals a different story. We're in an era of energy addition, not transition. Renewables like wind and solar are expanding rapidly, but oil, natural gas, including LNG, on other fossil fuels continue to grow. Hold on to your seats. This one's a big story. Let's start with the first part of this article. It's really trying to go over Texas ERCOT, and we say, wait a minute, the nameplate capacity overpurchase nobody's talking about. Let's talk about this. The Texas ERCOT system is an excellent review of nameplate capacity overpurchase. You sit back and take a look as of approximately 181 gigawatts. Of that, they have thermal, which is natural gas, coal, nuclear, diesel, 87.5 gigawatts, 40 gigawatts of wind, 34.5 gigawatts of solar. Energy storage, 14.7 gigawatts. Hydro, zero point 0.6 gigawatts. Biomass, 0.7 gigawatts. DC ties or imports, 1.2 gigawatts. So you start mathing up what this is. This is what they normally reached. For context, the system's all-time peak in 2025 this year was 83.9 gigawatts in August. So we have 181 gigawatts of nameplate capacity, but we only used 83 gigawatts in a peak format. Forecasted peaks were somewhat higher, about 90.5 gigawatts, but actuals came in lower. So when you look at that, let's match up the investment. ERCOT had 60 billion in wind since 2000. Cumulative capital for solar is 58 billion. Then they had 6.9 billion in total overruns in order to support the getting the power to the grid. So you take a look at that, that's 134.9 billion spent on Texas wind and solar installations. What could you do with that and put in nuclear plants instead? We would be in a different situation we would with ERCOT. But let's match that to the next part of that, and that is oil and gas supply demand. Nobody's talking about the demand. The demand peak oil is not here yet, and the 2024 IEA forecast demand growth about 960,000 barrels per day, revised down to sluggish. But when you sit back and take a look at peak demand, we're not even there yet. Natural gas demand, including LNG, tells a similar story that it is also growing. So you take a look and go, wait a minute, what else is growing? Coal. We just had another one. Electrical generation provides a key lens for comparison. We take a look at how all this plays out. Fossil fuels and global consumption, you take a look in 2023, that's where the latest numbers were on that, was 17,690 terawatt hours. Renewables was 8,700 terawatt hours, and nuclear was only 2,610. Here's where the rub, and that goes back to how much extra of the wind and solar is out there, and then how much has to be put back in. So let's take a look at where the coal is. I even put a coal map in here where all the coal plants are going, and you have megawatt hours, 1,684 megawatt is being produced or in process. Plants under construction or approved. Very important around the world. That is a lot. Maximum 221 megawatt hours under construction. This is huge. So when you take a look and sit back and go, wait a minute, we are not in an energy transition. Quit kidding yourself. We are in an energy addition. We are adding energy. So let's quit paying subsidies for wind and solar and say, if you guys can stand on your own, rock on. Let's install all the wind and solar you possibly can, but no subsidies. And I want to say it out loud. This is the quiet part. Quit paying power companies to shut off or not produce and have a total redo of the electrical system, because what we are seeing is what I've said before: microgrids and grids coming in behind the meter are becoming a major consideration on the grid, because then you lose the scalability and the lower cost to consumers when it comes behind the grid. How much gas is going to be, like the data center in Abilene, Texas? How much extra is going to be lost because the demand pull for natural gas and those natural gas turbines is not going to go to the open market? It's going to be contract based. So let's go to the next story. BP's new $1 billion investment in $25 billion investment in Iraq's Kirkuk field is more than an oil project. It's a geopolitical pivot. I'll tell you what, this is a critical life-saving event for BP. BP has really got some interesting things going on. I saw a lot of articles on this, and Bloomberg, shout out to Bloomberg, they had some good information on it. This investment formalized earlier in 2025 and kicked into gear October 2nd isn't about extracting crude. It's a strategic play that could reshape power balances in the Middle East and bolster Iraq's energy independence and ripple through the global markets. This is important. These fields hold immense potential, with estimates suggesting they could collectively produce up to 750,000 barrels per day at peak through the initial target, although the initial target is almost 320,000 barrels per day. The $25 billion figure represents BP's projected spending over the project's lifetime, covering everything from infrastructure upgrades to enhanced recovery techniques. BP is on it. It's got a toe tag on it, and this is a life-saving thing for them because they are being shut down in so many different ways with their poorly run UK government. I'm surprised that they're still not in the US yet. Got a map in here on this. And when you look at the next story here, Iraq also secured the first floating LNG import deal with the US firm, and it import can also be export. And when you take a look at this, this is for trying to get LNG as an import or export, depending on how it goes. We've seen that with Egypt. Import and export facilities can work both ways. So you can take a look at that. So the regasification unit, the FSRU hull 3407, is under construction by HD Heavy Industries in South Korea and slated for delivery in 2026. This is because, unfortunately, Iran, their neighbor, is not doing so well on natural gas, and they need to be able to import the natural gas. So let's take a look here at the next story. Oil giants want join OPEC in boosting production with earnings confirmations this week. This is a big story when you sit back and saying lining OPEC amid market challenges. OPEC and its allies have announced an increasing output, contributing a global surplus to an estimated 1.9 million barrels per day, January to September, with projections rising 4 million barrels per day in 2026. But we take a look at the U.S. numbers that were released today. We had a huge draw, and some of those numbers I'll go into here in a minute. But with that, let's go ahead and cut to our commercial and have a commercial word from Reese Energy Consulting.
As always, guys, the news and analysis you just heard is brought to you by world's greatest website, www.energynewsbeat.com. Stu and the team do a tremendous job making sure that website stays up to speed, everything you need to know to be at the tip of the spear when it comes to the energy and the oil and gas business. Go ahead and hit the links in the description below for all links to the timestamps, links to the articles, and specifically subscribe to the show on YouTube, subscribe to the show on Apple iTunes, give us a follow there, subscribe to our show on Spotify, please leave comments there, and subscribe to our Substack, theenergynewsbeat.substack.com. That's probably the best place to support the show. Stu does a great job of releasing, 2 to 3 articles a week that really encompass the big themes that are going on. We also drop all of our podcasts there, which give a little bit of a breakdown. We just had a great podcast, so I highly recommend everybody subscribe to our Substack, theenergynewsbeat.substack.com. We'd also like to thank friends of the show, Reese Energy Consulting, for supporting the show, guys. Reese Energy Consulting is the foremost midstream expert, guys. If you at all are dealing with issues in the midstream space, whether you're an upstream company and need help with first purchaser's contract or renegotiating your gas contracts or figuring out where you're going to tie in your next pad because you've got multiple different options and you're trying to break it all down, Reese Energy Consulting can help. If you're in the midstream space, I need an extra pair of hands, need some permitting or regulation help, or need some red team analysis on a final investment decision, guys, they have the team that can help you. Check out reeseenergyconsulting.com. They have clients everywhere and all throughout the country, from 2 people in a garage all the way up to the largestly publicly traded companies in the world. So if you're wondering, are you a good fit for them? The answer is yes. reeseenergyconsulting.com. And finally, guys, investinoil.energynewsbeat.com. We are coming up on the end of the year, and I promise you guys, you do not want to be paying money to Uncle Sam. You want to keep as much money in your pocket. You want to diversify your portfolio a little bit, and you want to get some dividends. You can do that by investing in oil and gas. Check out investinoil.energynewsbeat.com. Fill out our portfolio survey and our tax calculator. And guess what, you guys are going to get a nice ebook that tells you here's what you should look for when you invest in oil and gas, and also figure out what your tax burden is and figure out how much you might save relative to your tax burden if you did invest in oil and gas, guys. We practice what we preach here, guys. We do this stuff ourselves. Investinoil.energynewsbeat.com. Don't give your money to Uncle Sam. Figure out and find out if oil and gas investing is for you. Depending on if you qualify, we will, again, send you all that information, and we may or may not point you in the right direction. Again, investinoil.energynewsbeat.com.
Let's go to the next story. TotalEnergies, as we say on the Energy Newsbeat podcast, bolsters U.S. gas presence with 49% stake in Anadarko Basin assets. This is pretty cool. As Steve Reese over at Reese Energy Consulting, go over to reeseenergyconsulting.com and check them out. If you're, as our ad says, if you are looking to move molecules, they know who to and how to help you out there. TotalEnergies has acquired 49% in key gas assets in Oklahoma's Anadarko Basin, announced on September 29, 2025. With the deal, independent Continental Resources are not totally public on how all that's shaken out. Got to hand it to Harold Hamm. That is a big deal. The assets in question are non-shale properties located in Anadarko Basin and the Oklahoma, Texas, Kansas, and Colorado, with a focus in Oklahoma's play in the scoop and stack formations. This is very, very important. When you sit back and take a look, how many other countries are doing this? We've seen Japan's JERA, I believe, doing this as well. We've seen Saudi Arabia looking at doing this as well. This is critical. When you take a look at what investors are looking for, they're looking for investments in the energy stocks. TotalEnergies has really had a real heartburn because they went totally green on the non-energy transition, and you can see a pattern according to the podcast this morning, and that is that you're seeing that TotalEnergies went totally green and failed. BP went totally green and failed, and now they're investing billions in going into Iraq. And you look at the other things going on there, taking a look at production ramp-up cost and the assets, there are some real issues going on there. But when you take a look at TotalEnergies, and we'll go into some of the more of that later on after we take a look at some of their other announcements, I'll have that more information later. Let's go to the last story for today. Lower oil prices hit Equinor's Q3 profits and they miss analyst estimates. Norway's energy giant Equinor, a major player in the global oil and gas sector, released its third quarter earnings on October 29th, revealing a challenging period marked by declining oil prices that weighed heavily on profitability. The company reported a net loss of 204 million, a stark contrast to the 2.285 billion net income in the same quarter last year. Adjusted earnings per share came in at 37 cents, falling short of analyst expectations from around 57 to 62 cents per share. This miss underscores the total upstream focus to company-wide price swings as Equinor demonstrated operational resilience with record production, but the lower oil prices got them. However, adjusted operating income declined 10% to 6.2 billion, while adjusted net income plummeted 57% to 932 million. This downturn was, like I said, lower realized liquid prices. So when you sit back and take a look at this, the big boys are expanding out, and you want to take a look at Exxon and Chevron. They've stayed their course, and you take a look at BP, Shell, and TotalEnergies that went the green route and failed and have come back home to roost. You're sitting a major change. Companies want to give investors their money back so that they will turn around and invest again. And when you compare the real returns to investors in wind and solar and hydrogen, they're not there. You're getting it from the utility companies. Utility companies are a great investment when you look at cash flow. And when we take a look at the companies that are getting into cash flow businesses, their profitability comes from different ways. So anyway, with that, I do appreciate everybody. Like, subscribe, share, and have an absolutely wonderful day. Go to energynewsbeat.co or theenergynewsbeat.substack.com. And we are booked up all the way through the end of the year on the podcast with my interviews. I just finished a great interview with Doomberg and David Blackman. And if you are a energy CEO and you want to hop on the podcast, please reach out and go to theenergynewsbeat.substack.com and become a founding member, and we will reach out and say, hey, wait a minute, we'll get you onto the podcast earlier. And that is one way around the waiting list because we have so much going on. So with that, like, subscribe, talk to you guys soon.